All right, we're live. It's Modern Relics podcast. I'm Angel. He's lucky we're back again. Just a
Yes, we are.
week left before, as every news outlet puts it, the end of the world. Democracy will die. People are going to be heading for the hills and jumping through windows. Somebody will be named president of the United States a week from now. Everyone's furious. No one's going to be happy.
I've been told there's going to be a whole swath of people who will be moving out of country again, specifically Canada or
Oh yeah,
other places. So
musicians will stop making music and move to Bangladesh and other places. They're sick of it already, and there is no winner yet. I find it quite hilarious.
Yeah, it has been a flurry of insanity, especially over the course of the last week. But I think this next week is going to be pretty ugly. I mean, in theory, I'm supposed to be sitting in your house right now doing this, but due to the craziness and the potential further craziness, I chose to kind of stick close to home until maybe some dust settles, because I did not want to get trapped away from the family.
Well,
if that was the case.
And it's a shared sentiment as well, because I asked a few people like, hey, we're going to be doing election night coverage. Do you guys want to pop in on the pod and hang out for a few minutes, come and go? We'll probably be at it for a little while, just goofing off and bringing in the results as they come. And they're like, well, I mean, I'm like, I know none of you fuckers are going out. I know you're all going to be at home with the doors locked and the windows closed, clutching your dried food and your pistols, waiting for civil unrest to break out. And they're like, yeah, you're right. That's exactly what we're going to be doing. It's like, come on out, man. Have some fun. Hang in. Hey, the Prunes is here. It's not a pod without you. Can't speak to if we're in better shape than you guys. That's probably true, man. I hear there's a lot of bananas activities going on throughout Canada, and just people are losing their minds as well. So sorry
is
to hear
that
that.
Is that due to us, or is that due to your own things up there, Prunes? Is that like, are people having reactions due to our election? I can't imagine they wouldn't, but, or is it more due to the fact that you guys have your own shenanigans going on up there that are causing you guys to be less than polite?
I think if you ask anybody, they'll say Trudeau's always the answer, and they're just happy with how things are. So just lock, stock, and barrel. So how was your week? I know you said it was crazy. Things good at work?
Yeah, things have been really busy. Strangely so. Normally in the Great White North of any part of this country, come October, if you're in a small community of any kind, the town disappears into the woods to go hunt and kill things. To the point where it drops off. Business, like, for 9 years I've owned this shop here, and it is, without fail, October hits and it's not a decline, it is a cliff dive. And so this has been, weirdly, because we had a really slow spring and we had a very slow to medium summer, and then coming out of summer it started really picking up. And then to the point now where this has been the busiest October we've ever had.
Nice.
Ever. And I don't know if it's election related. I don't know if people are like, I got to get that tattoo before the world ends.
Right.
Or what the reasoning is behind it. Because the economy is not any better. There's still businesses shutting down left and right. We have another couple brand new restaurants that just picked up and shut down. Bars around us picked up, shut down. So the economy's not getting any better. Groceries and gas aren't getting any better. Rent isn't getting any better yet. For some reason, we have had a sudden uptick in fluctuation of business, and I don't know why. I don't know what it is. But I'm not gonna look a gift horse in the mouth, and I'm booked out till December, the middle of December. Nice. So it's not a bad thing. I'm not upset. I've actually had to hire a couple of artists recently, so that's been pretty good.
It's exciting. To answer your question quickly on the Canada piece, Prunes got back and said Castro's son has made a right mess over 9 years.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I
And that
love
is
it.
the proper nomenclature for that.
Yeah.
Less than gentlemen. So,
Well, so
um,
you got new artists coming in. It's busier than
yeah,
shit. That's all good news. You're booked out. Hopefully that they don't cancel and that stays the same.
yeah.
You think you're
Ab-
going to carry some good momentum through the winter? Because you'd mentioned to me, I think it was off the pod, maybe it was on the pod, that there's another Friday the 13th coming
yeah.
this year. Is that right?
In December, yeah. So
December.
it's a nice little boost right before Christmas.
Nice.
It's kind of uh, right when every tattooer is stressing
Yeah.
because no one's spending money on tattoos because they're buying gifts for everybody. It's always really nice to have a um Friday the 13th, like 2 weeks before Christmas, because man, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And it puts a couple K in our pockets, and then we get and pay our bills and make sure that the family actually gets Christmas presents, and so yeah, it's fantastic as far as business goes. As far as like locally and what we've been up to, the kids have been doing good. Oliver's cruising in school. Hockey season's about to start up, but then we've got a pretty contentious sheriff race here that has
Yeah.
been kind of occupying both of our, mine and Aaron's time, and the sheriff's race has gotten like 2020 was ugly as far as the sheriff race goes here, and there was a lot of mudslinging and stuff. It doesn't even hold a candle to what's been going on
Just
this
a
year.
social media bloodbath with the locals. Like I was about to
Yeah.
ask, and I think you answered the question already inadvertently, was it's a 4-year cycle then?
Yeah.
For okay. So when
Yep.
will this race be decided?
November 5th.
Okay, so it's on the term cycle for the president.
Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely. So, and we've got this cosplay cowboy guy who is bamboozled some locals that we just can't figure out how they could be that dumb to vote for this guy. Like people that we actually like
Yeah.
or did like up until this point, this guy has caused so much division. He's wildly, wildly unqualified, but then tries to run on the fact that it's character that he should be running on more than his qualifications, that the qualifications that the state requires are next to none. So
It sounds like a presidential nominee as well.
right, yeah.
Sounds like there's a lot of that going around.
But this guy has done nothing but like throw false accusations and lies and build up narratives against our current sheriff, who's only been in for 4 years. Like this is his first term, and he's great. He's been an awesome sheriff. But they want to paint him in every dirty light that they can. Oh, he's a gang member from California. Okay, where's the proof? Well, we don't have it, but we know. Oh, he's a Freemason. He's part of the deep state cabal. Okay, well, where's your proof? We don't have any, but we know it. I wrote this article about it, so that means it's true.
Idaho State has a deep state?
Apparently.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, we do to some degree, but it's not to the point where we can't recognize it within our county sheriff, who has for 3 years forgotten that he's part of the deep state because he hasn't done anything to suggest that he is. So
it sounds just like the right kind of psyop to throw you off his trail, man.
Totally. But yeah, it's gotten pretty dirty, pretty ugly, and the guy's gotten so desperate. He just put out a video that was really hilarious. He sat down all dramatically with music in a coffee house and has like different camera angles, and basically pops his head up to go. Been really disheartening that all that I can get to vote for me are women. Where are all the men at? And like it's like really, really pathetic that he goes, it's only women that are voting for me. Come on, guys, can I get a guy vote? And like it's pretty bad. But
and this is the cosplay cowboy, I assume.
Yeah.
Wow.
His name is Dan Wilson, and he's just, I mean, it's preposterous. However, he doesn't have a snowball's chance, so we're not really worried about it. We're just basically monitoring and keeping him at bay. He's really frantic for the last 2 weeks, and so we're basically swatting down and slapping down any of the lies, but we're not really going after him
Yeah.
because it's not necessary, because we're like, he's not going to win. Like, I would imagine that our, Sheriff Norris will get like 70% of the vote thereabouts, so we're not worried about it. So, but we just want to make sure that like the last ditch efforts of like accusatory lies
Sure.
just get swatted down. So we're just like, okay, we're just kind of maintaining a perimeter, just going, you're not going to win, but we're also not going to let you in here with a spear.
You're right.
And
You're
so
stepping on the throats of any potential October surprises, politically speaking.
essentially, yeah. So and that's about it. So he's got a lot of really loud, shrieky, not a lot. He's got about 20 loud, shrieky supporters that are, I mean,
Which
rabid.
lucky girl is fit to join my political harem?
Yeah. So and they're
funny.
rabid. It's been bad. It's split up friendships in the town, and I think irreparably too. I think he was has done a huge disservice to our community, and I think we should once the election's done, I think he should be put in stocks and have tomatoes and fruit thrown at him for a day, and then we should bind his hands behind his back and put a blindfold on him and set him backwards on a donkey and slap the donkey's butt and send him out of town.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way that should be handled on a regular basis. I don't understand why we don't do this anymore. But if you've shamed yourself in your community, that's what you do. You get exiled on the back of a donkey and they just slap it and go, whoever finds you gets you.
Yeah. You
And
just send him towards Spokane and
yeah, he wears like these leather cuffs that look like
cuffs, like sleeve cuffs,
like leather gauntlet bracelets.
Oh, okay,
And
sure.
Yeah, they've got, he calls them his armor of God, which is preposterous for. And I'm not going to get into his personal life, but
Sure.
if you knew it, it would make you laugh. However, they look like Edward Cullen cuffs from Twilight.
Okay.
So we're hoping that if we slap the donkey, he'll end up in Forks, Washington, where they might need a sheriff.
That's possible.
Yeah.
They're going to send Inslee back your way on a donkey probably here pretty soon. That's what I keep hearing.
We're going to send him back. He's just going to be in a state of limbo, or we're going to push him off to Colorado. I think that's where he belongs.
Just send him to Colorado. Well, I got to let you know, man, voting this election cycle is so damn hot right now that ballot boxes are catching fire, believe it or not. They're actually being sabotaged right now. I got this link like a few minutes before we started the pod, and I had heard this on a headline, but I forgot to click on it because my week has been a nightmare, and I also have a righteous head cold, so I'm not feeling the best. But hundreds of ballots destroyed in fires this week at least 2 ballot drop boxes in the Pacific Northwest, and this is around Vancouver, Washington. So if you are in Seattle and you need to go to Portland, you're going to pass right through Vancouver. It's basically the town that borders the 2 states down there, so still pretty Western Washington-ish. But I love the absolutely salacious commentary from the CNN article, as one would expect from CNN. But the various methods of sabotaging ballot drop boxes and avoiding detection, likely heightening the potential for targeting of this election's infrastructure through the 2024 election cycle. So do you think this was the 2 ballot boxes that they found? Do you think this was more a bunch of anarchistic skateboard kids that were high and lit something on fire and kind of threw up middle fingers? Or do you think this is truly targeting of the election infrastructure through the 2024 election cycle because they're labeling this attractive targets for some domestic violent extremists and other
No, I think that
actors.
What this is that they know they're in a tough spot. They know they're in a bind. They know that even with cheating that they're going to lose because it has been so overwhelmingly bad for the Harris campaign and good for the Trump campaign, to the point where they're like, we can't cheat enough to win. So what you do is you send out some hooligans and you burn some ballot boxes in blue areas. And what you do is then go, look, this is this is going on all over the place, because I guarantee you in the next week we're going to see quite a few more of these. But
I think it's worth noting that voting in Oregon and Washington are done entirely by mail or ballot drop off. 99.3% of the ballots are done by mail or drop boxes.
Right.
That's, if some of you listening are like, what the fuck do you mean? Why? Well, there are states out there that exclusively do this through early voting and mail voting. So go on.
yeah, and so that way they can, have plausible, they in their minds that they can actually use that as an argument of a failed election cycle due to sabotage. Now, I don't know if that's the case. It just feels that way. Like they've got to set stuff up so that they can have a back door on how to get out of this mess that they're in. Or it is just a bunch of hooligans doing dumb hooligan shit. And that's possible too, So it just, right now, our brains are always set to what's the story behind the story.
Right.
We're never in a position nowadays where we're like, oh, it is surface, face value, surface level understanding of anything.
Isn't it funny how hardened we've become to taking anything seriously and at face value as a result of the
I believe
wild
the news
distrust? Yeah, the wild distrust in the news and the overtly polarized societal take on shit. Yeah.
As a kid, I believed the news.
Mm-hmm.
We as early as the 90s.
Yeah.
As early as even somewhat the 2000s. Now, my parents will probably had a little bit of a brain tickle on some of that stuff, but I believed the news, and the vast majority of people did, because we thought what we were being, but now I don't believe it at all. Like, I literally, everything that's on the news is like, I don't know if I believe it, and it's not due to my suspicious nature. It's not due to my, conspiratorial mind. It's not due to anything like that. It's due to the fact that I've been told stuff by the news for the last 15 years that ended up being completely false, a complete lie, a cover up. And then it coming out years later, they've destroyed their own credibility and reputation. And it has nothing to do with
there's no accountability for that either.
Right. None. They just cruise right on by and just like, oh yeah, no, we're not even going to bring it up again. Page 8 down at the bottom in a tiny little column, hey, we made a mistake, if they even go that far. It's never a front page, we made a mistake by lying about this entire thing or not coming to the right conclusion on this entire thing. So yeah, no, I think that whatever, and I think is that even that concept, the generality of that concept of not being able to trust the news has been weaponized in and of itself against us. Like, oh, you don't trust us? Something's wrong with you, or like, we know that they don't trust this, so we can get away with.
That's the defense mechanism that's bulletproof for them, and I hate it. Is well, this is one of those whack job disinformation lovers that just can't rationalize their crazy with what's really going on. The answer is, well, what's really going on remains unknown, because you guys are so full of shit at every major outlet that we receive information from, with a decorated track record of willful disregard for truth and safety of others. That's kind of where most of us are at, and just don't say it so that we don't get tarred and feathered in the court of public opinion. I do wonder though, like, I don't remember when it was as a child that I came to realize that Santa Claus was a fictitious character, but I do distinctly remember when I recognized when a politician I thought was good let me down at a pretty young age. Do you remember who and when and what that circumstance was for you, where you kind of was like, I just got duped by a politician and it feels bad because you're doing exactly the opposite of what you said you were going to
do? Trying to think of who exactly the main, because that happens frequently now, not only on a current basis but also looking back historically. Like I'm not a big fan of Reagan anymore like I used to be. I'm not a
Mhm.
big fan of Abraham Lincoln like I used to be. You know, there's a lot of people that I'm not a big fan of. You know, like there's a reason Calvin Coolidge is my favorite
Right. I'm not a big fan
president.
of government officials the way I used to be, generally
But
speaking.
yeah, right, exactly. So,
but I just mean like that
but I'm
one
trying
moment.
to think of the one moment it was, and you know,
And this is an unqualified question. Like
the
I it
easy
just yeah.
the easy go-to is probably the Bushes, like
Mhm.
Bush 2, you know, Bush 2,
Bill
you know, I
Clinton for
voted,
me. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So, and it was something that uh, I wanted to defend him. I voted for him, you know, but like, there was something in me going, something's not right with this guy. And it's not like, oh, because he's a dumb hillbilly redneck cowboy Western guy, right? Um, it was something felt fishy with, you know, 9/11 and with what was going on and
Something
nothing.
something felt fishy about him being suddenly the dumb, derpy, redneck,
Right.
clueless guy. Because if you watch this man debate in the primaries and go revisit the tapes, this was one of the most articulate. Like he doesn't say nuclear.
Yeah.
Like he says that to elicit a reaction, and there's purpose behind why that is because he didn't used to say that. Like he was incredibly articulate and really with
It's
it.
like
It's like something was planted
it's like
there.
Saturday Night Live made fun of him for that, and then he adopted it.
Yes, like he wore it somehow as like the public face. I was more furious on the Cheney part of that, but I definitely
Yeah.
am with you on where you're coming from in that regard. Mine was Clinton, like pretty obviously. Like I feel going back through conversations with my parents when they were starting to understand I was taking a keen interest in the political side of things, which they thought was weird. Was it's like, well, I probably would have voted for Ross Perot if I was old enough to at that point in time. But Clinton had made some really quality arguments and had some really cool shit to say about public education and how much funding was going to go toward it and all this other stuff. And then, you know, halfway through that, you realize there are no new school books. Things are getting cut, shit's getting shut down, and all these funds are getting, well, reappropriated elsewhere. Because I had conversations with teachers like, hey, where's all this federal funding we're supposed to be getting with this guy? And that was the first time that I kind of came to grips with, like, you know, getting really let down by a politician in real time, where I was like, oh,
Right.
wow, that feels gross. And then that sentiment obviously grew to where it's matured to the point now where if someone makes a noise, I usually have this curmudgeon-y old guy look on my face and I cross my arms and say something to the effect of, prove it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, so,
Which is where I think as a society, we should all be at that point. We should
Right.
all be like squinting our eyes and going, I don't really trust you.
Yeah.
Prove it, you know? And
Yeah.
we've been lazy and conditioned over the course of, you know, an arguable amount of time, whether you want to say it's been 85 years,
Right.
you know, or 50 years or 30 years, whatever. But I think it's been a gradual roll where now the vast majority of the population is complacent and they don't care. They don't know their civics. They don't understand that a politician shouldn't be a job.
Yeah.
It should be a duty. Like there's never been a time before, you know, 40 years ago that someone had a job their whole lives as a
Right.
politician. Like they did other things. We pulled them out of the private sector because we went, hey, you're really good at manufacturing this thing, or you're really
Right.
good at building and creating this thing. We want you to be mayor, or we want you to run for governor because we see the value in what you've done within your private life,
Right.
and you understand certain things that, you know, really qualify you for these positions. And then sooner or later, that governor does a good job in the state and did a really good job because he did a good job on his farm or on at his manufacturing plant. And then you go, you did a really good job with the state. You're really popular. We would love you to be president, and you run for president. That's how it used to be.
Right.
and now it's somebody who has a poli sci major and banking background and family money. So what they end up doing is they just become a politician their whole life. They've never held a regular job,
Right.
and then what they end up doing is creating a political class, because they don't come from blue collar work. They don't even come from white collar work. They come from political background, and that is it. And so now a politician is a job, and it should never have been a job.
Right.
It should have been a duty to your country, something that you did for free, something that you did.
At least for now, the job description still says public servant. I'm sure they're going to find a way to change that, but you're absolutely right. That's the foundation of the role, not career politician, whereby you can continue to play politics and manipulate your way into whoever the hell's funding you. Because it's funny how like most of these men and women go into politics with known quantities of wealth and then come out of politics with millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like from the insider trading to the, where did these campaign contributions come from, to the lobbyist groups, to interested parties. Like it's funny to me. And why should they stop? Right. That's why they become career politicians, at least so far as I could tell. So you're absolutely right. Well said, because I think a lot of the reason that especially younger folks are more apathetic to it is because that's all they've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. But to bring it back to the voting situation with the ballots, I think we're going to see a lot. I mean, there's stuff going on all over the country right now with different types of shenanigans, whether it be burning ballot boxes and stuff like that, or them finding a whole bunch of them in drains, like storage drain, like not storage drains, but like they're finding whole like batches of ballots in storm drains. And they're all over the place. Every you can almost point at any state and find some type of shenanigans going on already. In Pennsylvania, it's getting wild because they're going back and forth with the legality, and it's going to go to the Supreme Court on whether or not they are going to allow, like they're doing in Nevada where you're at, where they're going to allow mail-in votes to be allowed to come in or after election day. So within a matter of days after election day, they're going to count those too. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going on that they're trying to parse out, and it's all going to the Supreme Court right now. But in Pennsylvania, one of the GOP committee women was taken away in handcuffs for encouraging people to stay in line and vote after a Democratic election worker misleads the voter, saying you won't be able to, you might as well leave. So this GOP lady's like, don't leave, we'll stay. In fact, we're legally obligated to stay.
Right.
They called the cops on her, and they cuffed her, and actually cuffed her to a bench and like arrested her for basically doing what she's not only legally obligated to do, but that's her job. She's down there to make sure that people get to vote.
Yeah.
And people were being turned away in a very sketchy way. Yeah. And she stood up and was like, "Hey, no, this you get to stay." And yeah, it's wild. They are really going hard on a lot of this stuff.
And like, the precinct that I voted in is the community that I live in that was closest to my house, in fact. And it's pretty Old Testament out here still. Like, there's still old men and women on walkers standing in line, holding their head up with their little ballot under their arm, waiting their turn. And in fact, most of us busting up the line was to try to usher them forward. Be like, why don't you go ahead and go? Like, so you don't have to fucking stand out here in the sun. You know what I mean? And like, that's kind of what I was hoping it would be. But this is also one of the main reasons I moved out of precincts like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we've all, whether you believe the last election was rigged, it was counted properly, it was stolen, it was whatever. Like, it's pretty hard to ignore a ton of pieces of evidence about train cars spilled over with a bunch of, ballots in it, and all these torn up trash bags full of, voter ballots in it, and ballots of people with their, names of the deceased and stuff on it without being completely filled out. So there's some sort of shenanigans going on, but
And there's only one reason to allow all that stuff too, or want to allow it and fight it in court.
yeah. I've never heard
same
of
thing
people
with
getting
voter.
cuffed to a bench, though.
Yeah.
That's
And
new.
well, last time they kicked them all out and then they boarded up the windows so there was like, 300, I think it was in Detroit, and there was like 300 Democrat poll watchers inside, and they kicked out all of the Republicans, locked the doors, and they were banging on the windows, and they just boarded up the windows and just counted under darkness without anybody else there.
Like,
that happened in 2020. That keeps happening to the point where when I get frustrated, when I'm like, what is the possible? And I think Joe and Don Trump, I don't know why I called him President Trump,
Don
and the Don, when they were talking on the podcast, which we'll get into, but they brought this up too. It doesn't make any sense, the voter ID thing. The voter ID thing doesn't make any sense unless you want cheating to happen, unless you want people who shouldn't be voting to vote. Like, there's no salient argument that says that, I mean, if you've got to have ID to buy cigarettes, buy liquor, go to the library,
right,
go, any of these other things, like there's so many things
get into the club, like whatever you need to prove that you're you. I think the same rules should apply for entering a voting booth.
I think it should be far more stringent to go into a voting booth. That is far more important than all of the other things that is requiring you to have an ID. And they try to paint it as if it's not important at all. But right. Why? Like, what is the motivation behind that? And they try to give you dumb arguments.
I won't elaborate too hard, but most of the seats that enter the rebalancing of the Electoral College are predicated exclusively in this country on census.
Yep.
And when you have things like a crazy influx of open borders and crazy shenanigans that way, that's one way to sort of finagle the seat count in order to unbalance all of the seats that go in there. And the voices get a little unbalanced as well.
But that's exactly why.
But to me, I believe that's the root ingredient of what's going on here. But to your point about proving who you are to vote, I don't see any reason on earth why that's not already mandated.
Oh, the lady who got cuffed to the Pennsylvania lady that got cuffed.
Yeah.
She's a GOP congresswoman.
Congresswoman was cuffed?
Yeah.
Oh my God. What is she? Presumably a Republican congresswoman?
Yes, she is.
Wow.
I'm trying to find her name. Because at first it said she was just a GOP. Val Biancanello was taken away in handcuffs for telling voters. But apparently, she's not only just a GOP committee woman. They've updated the story and said that she's actually a congresswoman. So I don't know, but yeah, I mean, there's video. It's wild. They just straight up, no, you don't get to tell people things.
Valerie Biancanello, a Republican state committee woman, so she's the chair of the RNC, and an RNC delegate was shocked at what happened after she encouraged voters to remain in line.
Okay, so this headline might be wrong because it says GOP congresswoman arrested.
Yeah,
that's a wrong headline.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's gonna make national news. No, yeah. She's just a lowly RNC delegate. People in the RNC don't matter. Am I right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a law here now where they bumped up the distance that you can actually hold signs and hand out literature and do electioneering the distance between the polling site used to be like 1,000 feet, and now
Yeah.
they've made it like 2,000 feet or something
Mhm.
like that, to because it started getting hot here last election cycle, where there were people like running into each other with cars and yelling and screaming at each other, and
Like, I don't know. It.
and
I think you ask for trouble when you try to find out who are you voting for before the voting is done, and then parse these people out. That's like, you know,
Yeah.
you may as well assign two rival gang members the same seat on an airplane. You know what I mean? It's just, that's dumb. But I can't believe it would. I can believe it would come to that, especially where
Yeah.
you live. Yeah.
yeah.
So
Apparently,
so,
our early voter turnout
Mhm.
every day, every single day, which normally every year before, every election cycle before, you could, during early voter in this area, you could walk right into the downtown voting office, and it's a matter of minutes. No one else is in there, maybe a couple of other people. They hand you your ballot, you do your thing, you hand it off, you're in and out 5 minutes, right?
Mhm.
Um, apparently every single day since early voting opened in our area, and I've got a bunch of friends who are down there like doing the sign waving and all that. They're down there, and the line is not only out the door and around the corner, it's like over an hour long,
Mhm.
but on top of that, um the traffic getting down 4th Street is all
It's
backed up
probably
because
obscene.
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because everyone's trying to get down there to do that and park and figure it out.
How many voting locations do you have during the early vote cycle?
Just one.
Oh, that's why. That's why.
Yeah,
Like
because we
in
haven't
my
needed it
town,
before.
not even the city, but in my town, I think I counted like 25.
Yeah.
You know, like the senior center, the such and such church, the place where you could go to donate food, like they all had stations and stuff with lock boxes and
Now,
people guarding them and shit. So
on November 5th, there will be all of those.
a lot, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but for early voting, we've never needed more than one
Right.
down at the elections office. So you go down to the elections office to turn it in. That's all you've ever needed. And because we just never have a turnout for early voting. And it's typically heavily blue that does
Mhm.
that. This time it is not the case. And they're getting, not that this area ever would fall to any type of blue wave of any kind, but in this particular case, it's just so overwhelming. The people are, this is the election that I think history is going to probably be written upon. I don't know why, but it feels that way.
I feel the same way, and I think it's agnostic of who wins. I just feel there's that
Right.
much unrest, which goes back to our opening statements around why we're staying home this year, like why you're staying with the family and things like that. Like we're going to be doing some live stuff, provided the internet holds. But yeah, it is interesting that you mentioned that, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but I did want to bring up some of the battleground states just to keep an eye on. So according to the most recent list I have access to, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 states
Yes.
that are battleground states. So Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona, and the great state of Nevada, where I live, are all battleground states that are dark purple. And to your comments earlier, like most of the early poll results come in blue because that's a voting pattern of most of the blue voters,
Mhm.
right? But what I do find interesting is there are some blood red states and then there are some not so blood red states. And Florida and Texas are not so blood red states the way the rest of them are. They're kind of like it's majority right, but possibly could possibly change. And similarly with the blue states, New Mexico and Virginia, along with Maine, looks like New Hampshire and Minnesota as well. Would that not be hilarious if the potential vice president loses his state to the Republican Party during his own?
That didn't even happen. That didn't even happen with Mondale when
Oh, but it did happen with Al Gore.
Yeah, it did.
Al Gore couldn't carry
However,
his own state.
after the assassination attempt on Reagan,
Mhm.
he ended up sweeping every single state, except for Minnesota, which was Mondale.
Mhm.
And he took his own state. But it would be hilarious if Waltz lost his state.
I would love to see it. Now, some of it, I'm not 100% sure. Like, DC's its own cloud of weirdness, right? But like Virginia at large is always a bit of a mystery box.
Yep.
So why that's sort of powder blue instead of dark blue remains unclear to me, as well as Maine. But New Mexico, I can kind of see the argument for, because New Mexico had the shenanigans where the governor decided to revoke people's ability to carry firearms
Yeah.
for a
Just
short
on a
period of
whim.
time. And I think Governor
Yeah.
Lujan got into some, hey, get the hell out of here type of response from her own constituents.
Yeah.
And similarly, I was hoping that Hawaii would be a little softer in the blue color. It's not going to be, but those folks have every reason to be pissed about how the government reacted to the fires in Hawaii and so forth. You know, Arizona's a bit of a question mark, and Nevada's always kind of been purple. We got to keep things blue and debaucherous enough to keep places like Las Vegas in operation, but not too blue and debaucherous where people get absolutely screwed on what we pay in taxes for imported things like food. So it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes. But I think the early lead is blue for Nevada as well, but it's a dark purple state. So those are things we're definitely next week going to keep a very close eye on. I have no hope for Wisconsin. I have some hope for Michigan. I have some hope for Minnesota, even though I think it's going to go blue. But what do you think about the other states, particularly Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania?
Well, Pennsylvania, from what I understand, is the key state. That one
Mhm.
right there. Every metric, every pollster, every analyst has all said that is the state that they have to win. Whoever wins Pennsylvania wins it all. And so that's going to be the weird key state. They've already done kind of the political math on it to see where everything's going to go. But I think honestly, if let's just say for the sake of the argument, we're going to forego any shenanigans. Let's just say it's a pure race, right?
Yeah.
And I could have phrased that differently.
Maybe a little.
Yeah, that's not what I meant. A clean race, let's say that.
Sure.
So then you've got, I think he takes Pennsylvania. I think Trump takes Pennsylvania. I also think he takes Georgia in a clean race. I think he takes Wisconsin in a clean race. And I think that Michigan now, which is very odd, especially with Gretchen Whitmer there, and she's stumping for her gal pal. Michigan, I don't know. That one's a question mark. I think we're going to see a far more narrow margin. It'll still be blue, but I think there'll be a far more narrow margin in Hawaii. I think that Arizona would be red. I think he would take Arizona.
I'm kind of the opposite. I think he has a shot at Michigan with the factory workers and how much they were able to preserve during the last term versus Arizona and the nuttiness that occurs down there. Georgia, I just don't know. It would suck to lose Florida if that went back the other way, although the GOP is ahead. So I'm same sentiment, opposite states for me on those two.
Well, and like I said, Arizona minus the shenanigans.
Right, yeah.
So, and that's what really puts, I mean, with their Secretary of State and their governor right now, like anything is possible in Arizona. You just don't know. And Maricopa County being what Maricopa County is, that's literally the game changer county for that entire state, and they know it, and they use it as a battleground. And
probably like 3/4 of the population of that state live in that county.
Yeah. So, and it's a hotbed, much like Loudoun County is in Virginia. You know, you got Loudoun County, Virginia, that basically dictates what the rest of the state is going to do to some degree. You know, And when you've got Loudoun County, which is a deep blue area in the middle of a deep red state. I mean, Virginia is a red state, except for Loudoun County. And because of the population difference there, it balances it out. But is it enough? Is it enough this election where there's enough people in Loudoun County who are pissed off about what's been going on in their schools for the last couple of years? And you've got Governor Youngkin over there doing what Youngkin does and stomping down all of this nonsense and being pretty vocal about it. I don't know. We'll have to see what that looks like. Pennsylvania's got Shapiro, but Pennsylvania's got a lot of oil, and she's pissed off basically that entire state. Like, they are furious at her for a lot of different things that she's come out and said. And isn't the meathead who had the brain injury that we all made fun, Fetterman, isn't he from Pennsylvania?
I don't know.
Well,
possible.
He has not been too favorable with Kamala himself. And so there's a lot of moving parts in Pennsylvania that seem to actually favor Donald Trump, regardless of what they've done in the past. But right now, all of their union workers are all going Donald Trump. And that's a huge voting contingent for that entire state. It is literally going to be whether or not that they can control the ballots in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and see what happens from there. Those two areas are going to be what Pittsburgh is far more red than Philadelphia is. You've got to get Philadelphia, and that's where those county ballots are but James O'Keefe has got over 200 people with secret cameras all throughout the hot point areas in the country to keep track of cheating. And he let everyone know, he goes, I've got over 200 agents with cameras to catch you. So, and I'm not letting you know where they're at, but they're all out there and they're all in the hot points, all the different counties where we know there's going to be problems. So, I don't know. We'll have to see. What really is wild to me is, where is it? I want to say, oh no, it disappeared on me. But New Jersey, the early votes in deep blue New Jersey have come out that Donald Trump's ahead in early voting for New Jersey, of all places. And that to me was wild. I was like, how is that even possible? But it's there. Like, they are absolutely more just in Arizona ballot drop box on fire Thursday. They arrested the guy.
Lovely.
For the one in Arizona.
This is what NBC News map says when you mouse over New Jersey. Rating solid Dem. These races are not competitive and are considered safe for one party. Click on the state for the full overview. Here's what they have to say about some of the battleground states we mentioned, and then we'll turn to some other topics. But because we're going to get into this presumably a lot next week.
Yes.
Arizona, Donald Trump won in 2016 by nearly 4 percentage points, but lost the state to Joe Biden in 2020 by less than half of 1 percentage point. Polls this year found that Trump and Kamala Harris are locked in a statistical tie. Georgia won Georgia in 2016 by 5 percentage points, but lost there too to Joe Biden in 2020 by less than 12,000 votes. The race this year is a toss-up with Trump and Harris locked in a statistical tie. Michigan. Donald Trump won in 2016, surprising Democrats in a state that Republicans had not won since 1988. Joe Biden won there in 2020, besting Trump by 3 percentage points. With Kamala Harris and Trump in a statistical tie, this is a toss-up. Nevada. Democrats won Nevada in the past 2 presidential elections, but polling and voting trends in the state have made it an extremely appealing target for Donald Trump in a bid to flip states in his direction. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are locked in a tie, and the state is also considered a toss-up. And then Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is emerging as the most critical battleground state in 2024. Donald Trump won the state by less than 1 percentage point in 2016 and lost it by about 1 percentage point in 2020. Kamala Harris has remained competitive there, and the state is classified as a toss-up. North Carolina, slight edge for Trump. Wisconsin, slight edge for Harris. So I find it interesting. There's a lot of stuff I would love to see different. I don't understand why it's coming down to a GOP rating for the state of Texas and the state of Florida, but apparently that's what they're saying it is. So it's not as red as we all think it is. And Florida historically has been a pretty spicy battleground state for most of the election races too. I mean, specifically in the George W. Bush 1 and 2 presidential terms. So
Yeah, and you've got you've got Dade County in Miami down there that you've got a lot of retired New Yorkers living down there who are all kind of intellectual liberals, and so they tend to vote Democrat. But you've also, what they've done is made the mistake of allowing way too many Cubans in, and Cubans tend to vote conservative because they don't want their country to go the way that their old country went. And so Cubans are very, very religious and also very, very conservative. And so as the Cuban population expands down there, the dwindling boomer Democrat vote tends, as they die off, they tend not to hold such a stranglehold on Dade County anymore. So there's a lot of flux going on in Florida, but there's also more Trump boat rallies and Mar-a-Lago and all of that down there. I mean, that's his home state. That's his home state. So it's very, very hard for, I think, him to lose there in a presidential election at the moment. I think that he's got that one on lock. As far as Texas goes, it's Austin. Austin is what is the problem child for the rest
blueberry.
of the state.
It's all the UT kids. It's the blueberry in the sea of red. Hey, speaking of rallies, though, the Trump MSG rally.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That was packed. That was crazy.
He packed Madison Square Garden.
Yeah. It was like
handily.
It's like a fight night.
Well, apparently there was even 200,000 people outside that couldn't get in.
Yeah.
That's 200,000 people that could not get in. That's insane. For New York State, for downtown Manhattan, I mean, that's wild. In fact, I've heard lots and lots of talk that they're saying that New York's actually on
the verge of being a battleground state.
Yeah, because of this and because of the past and Eric Adams and all of that kind of getting railroaded by the Kamala Harris industrial complex.
Kamala Harris industrial complex.
But the prince
says, "Wow, he packed MSG like the Raptors packed their arena in Toronto." Kind of. Kind of.
Yeah. But I mean, the lineup was
Trump
crazy.
has a better backcourt. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, especially, I mean, let's talk about his backcourt. Dr. Phil.
I saw this.
Came out and risked everything. I mean, this is an Oprah alumni. This is a guy that should not be sticking his neck out. And he did.
He did.
You have your regulars like Mike Lindell and all that, but for the most part, his lineup was beefy. He had Tucker, he had all of these guys come out. But what was the weird one for me was Tony Hinchcliffe. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Tony Hinchcliffe.
He's the Kill Tony comedian guy, right?
Yeah. So I've been watching him for a while just because, at the tattoo shop, we put on a lot of roast comedy.
Yeah.
And he's become massive. He's probably the biggest thing in comedy right now is Tony Hinchcliffe and Kill Tony.
Yeah.
And he does a good thing. You know, he's one of the Austin people. I thought he was a super liberal because he hangs out with a lot of super liberals, right? But he also hangs out with Joe Rogan, and he also hangs out with. He brought Tucker Carlson onto his show. Like he
brought
just not
Jordan Peterson on his show.
Yeah, so he's not afraid to like, you know, kind of just go comedies for everybody, right?
Yeah.
So although you know it's one thing to have Tucker Carlson or Jordan Peterson come on to Kill Tony and sit at a bench and laugh while everybody makes fun of each other. That's one thing. You know, it's a little controversial. Ooh, he brought out the people that, you know, the guys that nobody likes. It is a totally different thing to be the headliner at the Madison Square Garden Trump rally. And so that's sticking your neck way out there. And he did it. But I mean, this guy has been on fire with like the Brady roast, and you know, he came out swinging on a lot of things. But he's never really said how he leans politically. He just doesn't care. It's all, you know, it's all about the roast. And so, but this was definitely a very weird, like, I was like, Tony Hinchcliffe?
Yeah.
What? And I thought it was a skit when I first saw the picture. I thought like he had superimposed himself into the Madison Square Garden Trump rally, but it wasn't. He was the opener. And then he made a joke and then people got all offended about Puerto Rico. He said that he compared it to a floating pile of trash.
Right.
And then people like clutched their pearls about it. I was like, well, then you don't know Tony Hinchcliffe.
Yeah.
Like the guy does nothing but make fun of everything and everybody. Like it's not out of character or out of his wheelhouse to make fun of. I mean, the whole thing he does is roasting countries of people, or the guy with the gimpy arm on a stage, or the guy with the stutter on a stage. He doesn't care.
I mean,
like,
you have to either know the artist or the artist has to know the audience, because it's like maybe I'm not as well known for stuff like this at a political rally. Because to me, I kind of thought initially, I was like, well, this could be like asking Anthony Jeselnik to do a children's birthday party. Yeah, just go up and do 30 minutes for the kids. Like that's probably it's probably not what you're looking for. You know, maybe there's a disconnect there. But
there's speculation that it was Barron. That Barron said, "Hey, Dad, I love Tony Hinchcliffe. Get him on.
Yeah.
Like he'd be a great opener." And then nobody did any follow-up research because it was Barron Trump who asked for him.
Possible.
So because
that makes
I would
more
not
sense.
have put I would not have put Tony Hinchcliffe up. Knowing, you know, his material, I would have been like, you might be a little too spicy for our crowd.
Right. Or we'd like to at least take a look at what you're going to say. If you're willing to do that, we're willing to put you on stage. And even that's a risk, because some people would be like, say one thing and then totally say something else when they're on stage. So yeah, it was interesting. I don't know. Let's see. We've got,
but it was highly successful regardless.
Yeah, we've got a lot of turnout there. Whereas the Harris stuff, they're doing a lot of tight shots to make sure that they don't pan out to the empty seats, and that doesn't mean anything for how the voter turnout's going to be. But
not at all. But she's getting booed at her own rallies now because of the things that she's saying about, you know, Christians, and you know. She straight up is getting booed and at her own rallies, and it's pretty intense that she has been shooting holes in her own boat over and over and over again, and really sloppily and really lazily, like the McDonald's picture,
dude.
Can we talk about that?
This one's pretty egregious. For those of you listening and haven't checked into this, I sent you a clip of this on Instagram because that's the one that actually had a photo in it. But essentially, there is the photo circulating around of young Kamala Harris in a McDonald's uniform, kind of proving the point that she had made, I think, weeks to months ago at this point now, of her working at McDonald's, coming from blue collar background. And then when you do a image search for the exact same image, you find there is a real person. It's a young white woman that was her photo, and they just photoshopped Kamala's face on it and like changed the background a little tiny bit, but it's the exact same dimensionally accurate photo of another photo of this other girl that's been on the internet for.
And they tried
ever.
to pass it off as real.
And they're
they
just
tried
like,
to pass it off.
Yeah, like see, we
Here's
told
our
you.
proof.
It's just like, oh my god.
And they thought that, like, what era do they think that they live in that they thought they were going to get away with that for more than 10 minutes?
Like the internet doesn't lose. In fact, it's never lost. Do you remember when like Shia LaBeouf did that stint about, I don't even remember what it was. It was like, we will not comply or something like that, where it was just a camera. It was a live webcast camera feed of this sign or whatever. And the internet watched it and recorded it. And like within a day and a half, figured out by where the sun was rising and setting on how deep the shadows were, which hemisphere it was. They triangulated like where this building was. And like on 5 or 6 occasions, they had actually figured out where this live feed was coming from so they could like troll it.
Yeah.
And like, so you're not going to get away with a quick, let's grab a non-Getty image off a Google search and then put our top person on it to go fucking Photoshop Kamala's face on it and then republish that as like, see, this is it. Here's the proof you were all waiting for.
Comes off as drastically worse. Drastically worse that you got caught in a lie, and a really sloppy bad lie,
big time,
than just admitting that she never worked at McDonald's.
Dude, and what's more is the answer to that McDonald's question should have come from her campaign the same day.
Yeah.
Like, then go get, if you have a photo of this, let's prove it to the people. Let's put this one to bed right now. We'll get it circulated out with all the publicists and shit. Go dig through your Google and email one of your campaign people or your assistant, drum up some proof of this. Let's put this one to bed. And then we'll have our script writers stick it to the Republican Party for lying about it. That's how you do that. That's how you put that to bed, and not weeks to months later and then coming up with some random image that it's shameful. Oh my God. It was gross.
And that, I think even her side of the aisle, the voters that have been staunch, anti-Trump voters are now like in this last couple of weeks of like spiraling desperation that she has been plagued with over almost daily. There's another embarrassing story that comes out where she floundered in another interview, or she did this, and it's just getting undeniably bad. And I think that people are going, oh, why would you even lie about a McDonald's? The fact that they had to use a white girl is just salt on the wound. Like the fact that,
that's bad.
Who they photoshopped the first, in their words, the first African-American female president that they were going to be nominating. They had to Photoshop her face onto a 1970s image or early 80s image of a girl in a McDonald's outfit, and it was a white girl.
Right.
Like, that is wild.
And lest we forget, this is somebody who did try to tangle with the Democratic candidates to see if she could populate herself as the party's majority going into a presidential race, and got her ass kicked. Not
handed
lost,
to her.
Got her ass kicked. And then just de facto pronto, Biden's going to not rerun. We're going to just insert Kamala. So this is like, she can't handle this kind of pressure and is probably going to be prone to continue making public mistakes like this. But the deceit level factor coming from her campaign on stuff like this, that's not only transparent, but aberrant behavior, is pretty fucking transparent to the average person. And the internet is not going to lose. Like, they are going to cook you if you put out false material like that. So, you know what? Lay in the bed you made, man. That's the way I look at it. But it was pretty shameful. It was pretty shameful.
It was. Yeah. And it didn't take them long. Did not take them long to break that down and go. I mean, as the internet works at, 3 times lightning speed, they were like, oh yeah. Like, this isn't true.
Yeah, this looks oddly familiar. Check this original image out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just can't. So speaking of Don and Joe,
Yeah.
what did you think of the podcast?
Well, I got really excited, and I wanted to, we've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks, and
Yeah.
so the minute it dropped, I um was tattooing and I put it on and I listened to about half of it, and then I hadn't gotten a chance to get back to it until today.
Sure.
And I was tattooing my wife Erin, and I was like, "Shut up! I don't want to listen to your voice. I want to listen to."
I want to listen to Joe Rogan's voice.
Yeah, he's soothing. Be quiet.
Yeah.
No, she had her own headphones in. So
quiet ride home.
Yeah. We took separate cars. It was fine. But yeah, I listened to it today, and I got down to, kept getting interrupted by artists and kids and stuff, but I ended up getting to about probably 10, 15 minutes from the end. And overall, I think Joe did the best he could of keeping him on track, which wasn't great.
Yeah.
I thought that it wasn't, as far as informationally, like it felt more like, a Trump bragging session more than anything. However, I think there was certain points where he was funny, he was charming, and he was humanized, and he was self-deprecating in a couple of places,
right,
which was to his benefit. I think that Joe pushed him on a couple of questions, and we did get a few decent answers out of him, but not enough for a 3-hour piece. I thought there was way too much fluff and bumpers, and like
it was kind of a whatever podcast. Yeah, at the end of the day.
Yeah, like I think he was really, it really humanized him when they were talking about like MMA stuff. Mm-hmm. When they were talking about like, which I don't care about, like,
right.
But I was more analyzing it from the viewpoint of like because he seemed legitimately interested in talking about this stuff with Joe, so. And Joe kind of let him wander around in that a little bit before he brought him back, which Joe was pretty good at going, "Hey, you're wandering again." He goes, "Yeah, you're right. Okay, let's get back to it." But he did throw down some good questions. I think that he really tried to push him on some of the harder stuff that a lot of people don't get to ask him. And I'll be honest, not all the questions that Joe asked and that Trump answered, I agree with. Like, I don't agree with Trump on certain things like big pharma, mm-hmm. and pharmaceutical company stuff. I think he's still too laxed on that kind of stuff. But I think that he, in a very Trumpian way, answered a lot of the stuff that I think, needed to be answered. Just took 3 times as long and a lot of bag of wind answers, but ended up coming at least to some. What did you pull from it?
Honestly, like the biggest aha moment for me is very innocuous to anybody else that listened to it, and it was a point in the interview where Donald Trump said, "Well, I can't answer that. Like, I'm not going to. That's why I'm continuing to wander. Like, if I answer that, either it's going to allow my political opponents to prepare for what I'm actually going to do, like right. If I straight up tell you." Or it was like a real moment of clarity. And I think Joe got it. Oh, okay. He's like, yes, I have a fucking answer to that. And no, I'm not going to tell you. Like, I want to, but like, this is just going to give fodder to my political opponents ahead of an election cycle. Like, that's why we don't talk about these things. That's why you're not going to get an answer out of me on the news. And it was pretty enlightening because you're like, okay. So there is some substance there, and it's not just this egotistical, self-aggrandizing glory 3-hour-long puff piece.
I might have missed that little snippet that you just talked about, so I'll try to give it a re-listen. Mm-hmm. But that makes perfect sense because you see Joe kind of back away a little bit.
Yeah,
and it does make sense because you're sitting there and you're thinking, does he only really understand surface level of what his job was and is going to be? does he actually have plans? Does he actually understand kind of the mechanisms of what, or does he just speak in these generalities because he
Yeah.
doesn't truly understand? Or is it that he actually does understand all this stuff, but he's smart enough to keep it surface level? Because he's not going to show his hand.
He is so much
And-
smarter than most people give him credit for. This is a guy that grew up in front of a camera.
Yeah.
Like, it knows, and they get into that at length about his time with The Apprentice and all that stuff. And he knows all the producers and the executives by name, and he understands what he was doing at the time. And he remembers the New York real estate deals he was trying to close. Like, this guy probably has a better than foundational idea of how shit works, and also enough to form an ideology around that, specifically around politics. Does he know the finer points of political discourse at all layers of, internal and foreign policy? Absolutely not. I think there's more polished people than that. However, Donald Trump is extremely good at people.
Yeah.
And he's very good at going, that's not, it's like, well, how would you end the war in Ukraine? You keep saying you're going to have it done. How would you do that? And he's like, I know I'm not going to answer that question. You don't know I'm not going to answer that question, but we're going to talk about it for 40 minutes. It's like, and I know both of these people. I know this guy in this particular type of way, and I know this guy in this particular type of way, and they both talk to me, and I know I can get them to talk to me and each other in a room, and I'll leave you with that little nugget, and that's just how we're going to get it done. But I promise you,
he did.
So he gets
and
it.
And he'll give a little bit. Like he said that he's like, not only am I going to get these people to talk because I have different personal relationships with them, he goes, but it would have never even gotten there because I would have done these other tariff type of situations prior.
Yeah, that podcast had a lot of conversations about why tariffs are man's best friend. I mean, littered throughout it. But you're right, and I think it would have worked as well. So that's what my big takeaway was. Is it's like, dude, I'm here because I want to be here, and I think you're funny and intriguing, and you're doing great things, and I have a lot of respect for you because you came up doing martial arts and then went and did this reality TV show and then started a podcast, and now you're the biggest voice in alternative media.
Yeah.
Like, you could see the reverence in Donald Trump for Joe Rogan, which is also kind of a pretty big feather in Joe Rogan's cap. Whether this guy gets reelected or not, that's a former president. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he gets it. He understands people, and he knows why he's not going to answer the question. And so he's just keep dancing with you until they run out of time. He's great at it, so he'll keep doing it. But that was my big moment of clarity, was when he was like, I'm not going to answer that. I can't.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, fuck. Okay. Understood. Yeah. Like, this is making a lot more sense to me now. Yeah.
Do you think that this interview, whether or not there was a whole lot of substance in it, I mean, there was a lot of subtle substance in it, but as far as like gotcha moments or like, whoa, kind of crazy moments, like clippable moments or anything like that, do you think that it was a smart move to do it? Do you think that it moved the needle on any undecideds?
No. If people were sitting down with a pen and a paper and a single malt scotch in a quiet, dimly lit room with their headphones on and their eyes closed, waiting for Donald Trump to answer their deepest questions about how they're going to, absolutely not. I don't think, but from a point in perspective where most of modern media paints this man up to be a guy that walks balls first through every doorway. Mm-hmm. I think it took a lot of strength of character to be like, yeah, I'll go on Rogan
for 3 hours.
I mean, this is a guy that could light me up. This is a guy that has a tremendous amount of influence. This is a place moments before ballots are counted that I could completely tank everything. And yeah, I like this guy. I have some reverence for him. I understand how the game works. And of course, I'd love to talk to you about it. And I'm not afraid to do that off script. So fuck it. Let's sit down and have a chat. Yeah. For that purpose, it showed a whole lot of integrity from a guy that was shot at twice for making public appearances and shit. You know what I mean? It's like, to me, I think it was a great move.
I agree with you 100%.
I think it was a great move.
not only that, I think showing his ability and integrity to do those
Mhm.
type of things. I think if
But
anybody
answering
was
questions and changing the world, no, not at all.
but I also think though that what it did for a lot of people who might have hate watched it might have softened him to a lot of people going, oh, guess he's
Yeah,
like,
or left
maybe
him
he's not.
disappointed that they didn't get as many gotcha moments that are clippable
Yeah.
and spreadable that they wanted to go viral.
Exactly. So like,
Yeah.
I think it was probably one of the biggest yet most subtle smart moves at near the end of a campaign that they could have done.
Yep.
So
There's 2 thumbs up from a politics perspective.
yeah, for
Big
sure.
time.
Do you think, or did you hear that Kamala denied going on?
I didn't hear that because I felt like I dug that horse up that was already dead and beat on it a little bit last week with like, do you think she'll do it? I know the answer's
Yeah.
probably not, but no, I didn't know she
No.
confirmed that she wouldn't do it. Was
Well,
that because Joe Rogan's going to mansplain some stuff, or was she
they had too
angling
many.
why, or is it out of fear? Like,
I think it was a combination of if she's going to do this, here are the parameters. And he was like, absolutely not.
Mhm.
And they went, well, then she's not going to do it. And, Joe Rogan requested her to be on it.
yeah,
And they said, okay, but she's not good for long form. So we need to put bumpers on this thing. And
Right.
he wouldn't allow it. And so they said, no, then we don't want to be on your show.
It would have been
be
it would have been funny if they like set it up with the old switcheroo where like Joe has to go to the bathroom right when they go live, and instead like Tulsi Gabbard comes climbing out from underneath the apron with a steel chair, like, oh my god, it's Tulsi Gabbard. She's the one asking questions now, and it's like round 2.
that would be hilarious.
That would have been awesome.
I also think that the next time she, like, if between now and election day, if she happens to have a stop off in Austin, Texas, that they trick her like they did Tucker Carlson and throw her on stage on Kill Tony and let them just roast her on Kill Tony. I think that would be hilarious.
No, I didn't know she.
Oh, here, walk through this curtain.
Yeah, I didn't know
Oh,
she
you're on stage
expressly
now.
declined that, but
Yeah,
it
I think Tim Pool's talking about it tonight. Actually, I think that's
for the skeptics though. Like, it would be nice to see her in a non-news presented long form podcast with someone like Joe Rogan, but it just leaves too much to doubt on, are you doing this because you're scared of what you might say? Or are you doing this because you are going to attack anybody that could be the host to prevent you from doing it because they're, a male or white or this or that, or politically, not as agnostic as you want them to be? Either way, it's kind of crummy, because I would confidently pay money to a subscription service just to listen to that if it was Joe Rogan and Kamala Harris in almost the same format, or the exact same format. So, no, I didn't know she said no. That's just kind of I think we're getting robbed of content, but whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me pull up this article.
Sure.
Whoa. Republicans take early voting lead in deep blue New Jersey.
I
Apparently,
don't think it'll last. Do you? I hope it does.
I hope it does, but I don't know. According to the latest data, as the campaign enters its final stretch, there are positive signs for Republicans and Trump campaign in various critical swing states. However, there are also reasons for optimism coming from several traditional Democratic strongholds, including New Jersey, which was won by a Republican in 1988 when George Bush, by a comfortable 420,000 vote margin. Yet, with under a week until Election Day, Republicans currently hold the lead in New Jersey by about 4,500 votes.
Come on, Garden State.
Dang.
Dude,
that's wild. DC Drano's even reporting on it.
I was going to say, if
a whole bunch of people are, actually, it's wild.
If New York flipped in some crazy, oh my God, pay-per-view style, what happened type of thing, that would be kind of absurd. I think that would upset many apple carts with that many electoral votes. But yeah, I can expect I mean, we'll see about Jersey, but I can expect New York and California and all the other coastal elite spots are likely to stay blue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah, man.
I had a weird story that
Mhm.
I need your perspective on
Sure.
because it does not make sense to me. Do you remember Nancy Pelosi's husband Paul
Yes.
when he got attacked by that weird dude from San Francisco, and like there was all this speculation around it, like why didn't security catch this guy? What was he doing? Why were they hanging out in their underwear?
Mhm.
They knew each other. What was actually going on? And no answers really came from that. They arrested the guy, and then you didn't really hear from him again. And Paul Pelosi has since recovered. He's fine. Everything's going swimmingly well in the stock markets for the Pelosi family. Um, everything's status quo. That dude who Dave DePappy,
Mhm.
um, yeah, he just got sentenced today.
He did.
Take a guess. Take a guess at what a guy who did a B&E according to, you know, like that's under, in my opinion, speculation. But a
Well,
B&E,
this is what he was convicted of. It's life without the possibility of parole is the correct
right?
answer, but he was convicted in the following charges: first degree burglary, false imprisonment of an elder, and attack, presumably with a deadly weapon, because they said he hit him in the head with a hammer.
He did.
So yeah, not a day goes by that we don't think of this devastating assault, its trauma, or the possibility of future attacks. Yeah, they threw everything but the death penalty at this guy, which is California,
Yeah.
so you're not going to get that. But
And hey, not that I want anyone to get hit in the head with a hammer after a burglary, but and let's just say let's take this for face value of what it actually happened and not put any speculative spin on it. Let's just say dude breaks into house of old guy, holds him there for a while, hits him in the head with a hammer as the cops were, I mean it's on video.
mhm.
Cops were entering in. They hit him on the head. Uh, dude doesn't die, doesn't suffer any, like, I mean, he was in the hospital for a little bit, but he didn't, like, he's not in a wheelchair. It didn't
Right.
damage his life. Uh, life in prison without parole? This seems way off. That doesn't seem anywhere near
It makes perfect sense if the charge was attempted murder.
right. But even attempted murder, you didn't murder somebody.
Right.
20 years, 25 years, you know, at an attempted murder with the other stuff added onto it. I mean, even attempted murder, you're probably getting out they'll probably give you a 15-year sentence on attempted murder. Or they're, you know, like you tack on other things for the
Well,
breaking and entering and all that.
This is Pelosi's husband. It is according to the defendant, in response to believing his government appointed lawyers were conspiring against him, being a bit unhinged, and the attack was with a hammer, and it's California state. So there's so many reasons why that's not going to be a 15-year sentence. Like, but life without parole is
right.
I mean,
That means this dude has information
yeah,
about the Pelosi family that they don't want to ever see the light of day. So they threw a life sentence without parole. They're going to put this guy in a hole, and you're never going to be able to hear his name again. And that's the only conclusion I've been able to come up from this story, is like, because I saw it, I was like, wait, life without parole for that?
I guess my perspective is that this is California, and that's kind of why I'm going, If this same sentence was passed down in Iowa, I'd be like, you're trying to put this guy in a hole, guaranteed. Because you don't get that kind of sentencing outside of California for that series of things. But because it wasn't attempted murder, I'm inclined to believe you that, like, all right, well, 20-year term with, you know, whatever possibility of parole seems more befitting of the crime. But no, they said death penalty -1.
Right. What's funny is in this story, the funny thing is that um, he used his last statements to say 9/11 was an inside job.
Yeah.
So,
would
my
it have been
guess-
sweeter to say that, or to say something to the effect of Epstein didn't kill himself as they were dragging him out?
Yeah. I don't know. Like, you would think that he would say something like, "The Pelosi's are crooked, and I know all the dirty secrets."
Right.
You know, like,
I need a book deal as they're dragging
yeah.
him out. Oh,
I'll tell all.
Right.
You know, like, but yeah, instead he's like 9/11 was an inside job, and everyone just kind of looked around and went, "Yeah, we know." That's what you're gonna.
Nancy's
out with,
the
huh?
architect of it, so you know. Yeah, that one's that one's a bit bananas for sure.
It just didn't make any sense to me. I was like, why life? Like, without parole? Like, it doesn't. I mean, throw the book at the guy, give him 50 years, whatever. But like, it just seems like so over the top for what the crime was. Like, especially with what's going on in California right now, where people are literally stabbing and beating each other and robbing and smashing out places and getting caught doing it, and they just get let right back out on the street.
But this is Gavin Newsom ran California with a judge presiding over a case that involves a extremely deep blue political figure that's been nested at the highest echelons of the United States government for how long has she been there? 5 decades or some shit? Like,
yeah,
forever. So I'm not in the least bit surprised, but I do kind of wrinkle my nose at the crime and the punishment, because I don't think that would have been sentenced that way in another state, you know. But it's like, if you really boil it down, like, yeah, I'm sure Newsom's probably going to do everything he can, along with all the judges that are politically minded, to throw the book at it, you know. That's my uneducated 2 cents on it, but that's my reaction. Could be wrong, but I feel that's pretty befitting of California for all the reasons California continues to manifest to us. So hey,
right, yeah.
So what? Yeah. So what else we got? We got holidays coming up, dude.
Yeah.
What do you got for? Are there stuff you look forward to every year, or this year particularly? Like, any traditions, any exciting plans for what we got? Halloween is coming in 2 days.
2 days.
2 days.
Yeah.
Damn. And then Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's.
Halloween, I loved as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Loved Halloween. It was fun. Running around in the brisk air with my buddies, trick or treating, harvest parties at church. There was, and I'm obviously somebody who loves the spooky and the macabre. So, however, as far as the holiday itself, it was fun when my kids were younger.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to go pumpkin patching and go pick our pumpkins from the pumpkin patch and go get cider and, you know, all the autumn activities, and then decorating the house and carving pumpkins together, and then taking the kids trick-or-treating and all the costumes and all that stuff. It was a lot of fun when they were young. But now that they're older, and they kind of just want to go hang out with friends, or, you know, sometimes they just stay home. They don't even want to get, you know, dressed up. We didn't decorate at all. We didn't even get pumpkins to carve at all this year, which, that's the one thing I'm not too sad about, because carving pumpkins was very laborious for me.
I was gonna say, it's a messy endeavor.
Well, they would get bored with it, and also didn't have the arm strength for it. So
Right.
I ended up doing it all. And so I ended up carving like 3 or 4 pumpkins and being like completely wiped out and pissed off by the end of it. But it's just not, doesn't have the same flavor anymore. Like,
Yeah.
I barely even recognize, I mean, and in a tattoo shop, pretty much every day is Halloween. So like,
Good point.
there isn't So it's not like anything that's bringing any type of special joy to our lives at this time of year. I don't even know what we're gonna do. We'll probably stay home. We're in a new neighborhood this year, so we're kind of
Mhm.
expecting a lot of trick or treaters. So we'll probably do that. I don't even know if we have anything to decorate the door with or anything,
Yeah.
but we'll have candy and a light on. So we'll probably watch some scary movies at home. That's about it. As far I'm gonna be tattooing half the day, and then when I get home, probably eat dinner and throw corn syrup trash at children for a couple of hours.
It's a good plan.
But yeah, the kids, I have no idea. They may hang out with friends, they may hang out at home. But chances are they'll probably just hang out at home. As far as the other holidays go, I love Thanksgiving. Because I love the food and
Yeah.
I love turkey, I love stuffing, I love gravy, but I also just love kind of the camaraderie and the hanging out, and we build, family, and then extended family of friends and stuff like that we all get together. So I'm a big Thanksgiving guy, but Christmas has always been my favorite holiday.
Yeah, it's me too.
And so I'm a big Christmas guy. And so um and I'm looking forward to it this year. It's gonna be great. Actually, I've got a lot of things going on that are gonna be pretty fun for the family. I plan on getting really into the spirit of Christmas this year, and I even got on my calendar the day that we're gonna go get our tree.
Nice.
Stuff like that. I've got stuff planned out that I really want to kind of, really, really kind of bring the spirit of Christmas around, and I love it. But yeah,
That's
how about
awesome.
you?
I'm thinking about shutting down Halloween this year. I had for 2 years running, light on, universal. I don't decorate, so it's like whatever, but porch light on is universal sign for it's cool to knock on the door. There's probably candy behind this door. I had quite a few community members come by, moms pushing kids on strollers, little kids. Last year, I had 3 customers all night, and I had so much candy, and like nobody came. And there was like 2 dudes that were probably in their 20s with like masks on and backpacks, and I just threw the door open and looked at them both, and I was like, shouldn't you boys be like at a party or something? And they kind of hung their head like, yeah. I was like, all right. And I just handed them a peanut butter cup. I'm like, well, you be safe out there, So I had all this candy. I had to give it to like one of my neighbors that has 2 younger children, and he hated it. But I was just like, yeah, here's 3.5 pounds of chocolate goods. Enjoy. So this year I might not be doing much for Halloween. I might just shut it down on my block because there weren't any customers last year. Thanksgiving is likely going to be, I'm going to hang out with my buddy Chris and his family probably
cool.
the night of. And then obviously you and I will probably do something because you'll be down around that point in time. So I'll make something delicious at least for one night. Christmas, I really get geeked for. That's my time. I have one of those fake trees that has like way too many lights embedded in it that you can program what the lights look like and do on your phone. I would go get a tree, but I live in a state that doesn't grow trees. So there are no trees for me to go get.
I can't imagine how expensive like a fresh Christmas tree in Las Vegas, Nevada would be.
Some of them are 4 figures. Yeah. And and you're fighting people for them and shit. I'm like, I don't know. And I believe the Joshua tree is like a protected species, agriculturally speaking, similar to the saguaro cactus. Saguaro cactus doesn't really grow in Nevada, but the second you cross the Arizona line, they're everywhere. I mean, there are probably a few in this state, but it's the cactus that you imagine cactuses look like this, is the saguaro. We get the prickly pear ones and like low growing cactuses, but no trees, no real, not like the north. So it's a different ball game down here. So I just got a fake tree. It breaks down into 3 big parts. It lives in a big red bag that says open on Christmas, and I set everything up, and I get pretty excited about it. But I think I'll be probably traveling a little bit this year. I also have a really cool idea. I don't know if my father listens to this podcast, so I'll have to tell you about it off air. I have a really sick idea for my dad for Christmas this year, that I'm trying to like build some momentum around in my head on how I'm going to pull it off. But other than that, I don't have any traditions other than Christmas morning. I will make cinnamon rolls.
Yeah. You do.
You have to do
Every
it.
year you do.
You got to do it. So that's my like every year tradition is like the cinnamon roll on Christmas morning.
You know what you
Outside
should
of
do?
that, it's kind of fluid.
You know what you should do? You should take up our Christmas Eve tradition.
Hot wings, right?
And hot wings.
Mhm.
Every year we do that because it's easy and we know we're going to be eating like monsters the next day with a giant meal.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, all the food prep and stuff goes to that.
Yeah.
And instead of like having a Christmas Eve meal and then a giant Christmas meal, we're like, let's just do hot wings. It's easy and it's fun. We love it, and it became our tradition. So we do hot wings every year. And I'll make like 3 or 4 different kind, put them on the smoker, and then like, you know, the kids will have the barbecue, and
Yeah.
there'll be the hot, and I'll do some like Asian zing thing or whatever, and
Well,
then we'll just celery and carrots and ranch and blue cheese.
yeah,
And just,
which is brilliant. Like, plus you can make your own on the smoker and stuff too, which is probably way easier to like and cheaper to get in and out with all that stuff, which is a good idea. Like, I've shied away from turkey on Thanksgiving principally because the last few times it's been just me and there's no shot I'm getting like a 20-pound bird and then wasting all that meat. You know what I mean? So I just can't eat it that fast. But I do for the last couple of years, and depending on how prices are this year, I've gotten really good deals on prime rib. Yeah, and so I smoke a prime rib. So my goal is with multiple eaters. When you come down, I'm going to try and find one, see if I can bang that out. Maybe some mashed potatoes, and we'll figure something out. But yeah. Other than that, like if it's a community gathering thing, I'm usually on the hook for bringing potatoes, and that's kind of my thing. Is like I'll bring that in a bottle of wine or some signature addition to wherever I'm going. But hosting myself, it's hard to do a meal that extravagant for one guy. It's like I'm going to get a turkey pot pie. I'll cover all the bases, and I'll be stuffed, and it's just me. I'll have no leftovers. There won't be any dishes, you know. So
yeah. Well, when I'm down there, maybe we can invite some of your friends over, and we can, because I can cook too, and I can help out, and we can do like a small get together thing, you know, and do something like that. So
Thanksgiving party at the house. It'll be fun.
Yeah, that'll be great.
But yeah, that's about it for tradition for me. But we'll see. Maybe we'll build some new ones. I like the hot wings idea. I think that's a good idea. It makes a ton of sense too. So, you got anything else before we hit the gospel by Gen Z? What do you think?
I think I watched a movie.
Oh yeah, we got movie reviews. I got movie stuff too, actually.
Oh, really? Okay. I watched a movie, and I actually watched quite a few, but there were so many bad ones that I just like, that I don't even want to review them. But there was one that just recently came out, and I don't know if I reviewed it last time. And
which one?
I can't remember. And it's the new M. Night Shyamalan movie, Trap.
No, you did not.
I did not. Okay. So M. Night Shyamalan came out with a new movie, and it's called Trap. And it stars Josh Hartnett, which hadn't seen much of him for a while. And he plays a father who is taking his young teenage daughter, probably 13, 14, to some pop idol mega concert, you know, and just the two of them. And he's, you know, she's super overly excited, and he's as dad can be about it, and, you know, trying to be happy for her. And as the story progresses, you realize that he is not just your average father, that there's something very, very different about him. And this thing got terrible reviews, like full on some of the worst reviews that M. Night Shyamalan's gotten. And that's saying something with The Happening and with the Airbender movie he did, and even Lady in the Water, a lot of people didn't like. You know, he's a very polarizing director. So I went into this with super low expectations. It happened to drop, and I was like, "Oh, it's M. Night. I gotta watch it." So
Oh, and I like Josh Hartnett. I think we most recently saw him in Oppenheimer, right?
I don't know. I never saw Oppenheimer, so
Oh, you got to. It's really good.
okay.
Yeah.
It's on there.
It's
once November hits, I can go back to normal movies.
yeah, it's a 3-hour adventure, so but it's damn good. So
But M. Night wrote this and directed it, which tends to be the case for him. However, the cast also includes Seleka Shyamalan. And Seleka Shyamalan is his daughter.
okay.
And she's one of the main characters. She's the pop singer. Lady Raven, I think is her name. That's supposed to be like a Lady Gaga level of fame, right?
Sure.
And Lady Raven, Seleka, can actually sing. And I think he built this, and I think this is his biggest criticism of this film, is that he built the entire film to basically showcase his daughter's singing ability and put her in a movie. And hey, so be it. If you got that kind of money and you got that type of power to do that for your kid, go for it, I guess.
Have you or someone you love been involved in a case of nepotism? Call the law offices of this guy and sons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, why not though, eh? Like,
why not? But she can actually sing. I was
Yeah.
actually pretty impressed, and she pulled off her character pretty well too. Like, at first you don't even realize that she's gonna be a character outside of the singer portion of it, and then the third act is basically, she's a main component in the third act. But Josh Hartnett, although starts off really bad and cheesy, he really develops. And his acting really shows through by the end of this movie. Now, there are plot holes galore in this movie, as there consistently is but it was fun. I found it tense. I found it entertaining. I found the story kind of intriguing. And I mean, the whole thing, like, if you really look at it, they should never, the whole plot should have never been able to play out because of certain elements. But
hashtag M Night.
Right.
Yeah.
However, Josh Hartnett, you come to realize as he's going in, he starts seeing a very, very large, overwhelming police force and SWAT force that is kind of very noticeable surrounding the building and within the building. And, there's lots of people talking on radios and SWAT guys, and, he's recognizing there's snipers on buildings away. So he's like getting kind of nervous. And then so he ends up asking a vendor, and he goes, "Oh yeah, you've heard of the serial killer, the Butcher, right?" And he goes, "Yeah, I have." And he goes, "Yeah, so supposedly there was a tip to a profiler, and the profiler says that he's gonna be here tonight with his kid." And that this whole thing was a setup. The whole concert was an entire setup as a trap
To draw him out.
And so we surrounded the place, and he's not going to be able to get out. And it's basically him trying to hide from his daughter, who he is, while still trying to outsmart the profiler and get out of this concert in one way or another and get away with the whole thing. And so half the movie is that, and then the other half of the movie is once they all get out of the concert, and he is now intermingling with his family and this pop star, and what pursues, goes on from there. I thought it was actually pretty entertaining. It wasn't the best M. Night Shyamalan movie. It wasn't the worst, but it was definitely, I had fun with it, and it was schlocky and obviously a setup to put his daughter in it. But one of the weirdest parts about it was the profiler was played by Hayley Mills.
I don't know who that is.
So Hayley Mills, and I was like, that lady looks familiar, but I don't know why. And it's because she's, she was born in 1946, so she's like in her 70s. But Hayley Mills was an old Disney kid, but she
Oh.
played Pollyanna. She was in the original Parent Trap from 1961. Like she was in all of these 60s movies like That Darn Cat and like all of these crazy. She was a childhood kind of Disney actor.
Sure.
I think she was like in like the Love Bug movies, like with the Beetle, the Volkswagen Beetle that was alive. Like all of those movies. She was in all of that kind of stuff back in the day. Lots of TV, Disney TV, and she was just a very well-known actress back there. I hadn't seen her for years, and she's the old lady profiler in this movie. And I was like, what? Like Haley Mills? Where did you
Right.
dig her up from? But yeah, I don't know. It was kind of fun.
Nice.
But you don't expect too much other than just like a kind of fun, tense movie where a guy is trying to get out of trouble. And so I would say probably 6 megs.
6 megs.
Solid.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Well,
just over half.
I've got to admit to you, partially being inspired to challenge comfort level and partially to not get completely panned as a complete wiener by our own podcast people that listen to the show.
Have people been giving you crap for this?
Possibly. I dipped my toes in the most vanilla cupcake way into the macabre a little bit ahead of Halloween just to try and partake in the can I do it and not be such a wiener. I didn't know that they had made a Generation 2 version of Dexter called Dexter New Blood, which is which aired on Showtime. And I liked Dexter, the original one.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as like terrifying. There's some cringe moments or whatever, but it was actually a pretty fun series to watch. So they made one season, and then it was right when Paramount was merging with, I don't remember who, so they canceled like all these shows. And I didn't even know it came out because I'm not a mega fan of the series or whatever, but I found it and I was like, oh shit, this is like a year and a half old or something. Yeah. And I guess they're going to film more of a series, but this one was written to be a standalone series in case it got canceled. Like it's a complete thought just in case.
I've seen it.
And I watched the whole, like, I think there's 8 or 9 episodes or something to it. They're all about an hour long. It was really good. I was surprised. Like there's some campy shit to it, and there's obviously some pretty gross stuff involved. But I really liked the dynamic of where they took that character after kind of an inconclusive ending to the original series, which I feel like went on for 7 seasons or something long like that. It was on for a while, but it was pretty good. And I was mildly surprised that I could stick it out because it wasn't like terrifying or any of that shit, but it was kind of fun. There's some parts of it that I could do away with that were like, this is very CW type of show now with all the kids involved and shit. But it was kind of a neat next chapter for the Dexter story that I thought they did overall pretty well. And the ending was pretty satisfying on this one overall, just because it was poetically set up throughout the whole show to be what it was. So anyway, I watched Dexter New Blood. I thought it was pretty good. I'd give it not really my favorite subject matter. We'll probably throw 6.5 megs, probably the tail end of the meg. I really like Michael C. Hall a lot in the stuff that he does. So, that was cool.
Actually, having seen it, I actually, I was, a big fan of the original series, and then watching this one, I saw it, and there was a very distinct right in the middle where they took a completely different direction with the show. And it was due to public outcry where they were like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And they rewrote episodes and actually steered it. Like the whole environmental situation with the guy who was going to be the big bad guy because of the environmental stuff. They tossed that. You didn't hear anything about it for the rest of the show. And they went, okay, we just got to do Dexter, and they really kind of steered the show into you felt a jolt of a shift in the show.
Oh, yeah, even in the dialogue written for the podcaster girl.
Yeah.
And she's like really going into some social stuff, and then it's like, boop.
Yeah.
Nope.
Because they were getting feedback that this isn't playing well to audiences who are your bread and butter. The people who
Right.
10 years ago were watching this show don't want to hear all this stuff. They want to find out what happened to Dexter and what's going to happen to Dexter.
Correct.
You know, and so, but yeah, no, I actually thoroughly enjoyed it too, and I thought they put a nice little bow on it, and that the fact that they're even going to pursue next generation stuff, I'm actually kind of intrigued, but we'll see.
Yeah, me
So-
too. Because I think there's one of 3 major areas they could explore with it that I think would be really cool. And for those of you that are interested in spoilers, maybe plug your ears a little bit. But throughout the show, they bring his sister figure in, right? And sort of the dynamic that she plays.
Deborah, I think.
Yeah, with his character. I presume they will replicate that with Dexter and another character if they explore another season of this. You know what I mean? In almost the exact
Yeah.
same fashion. So I think that would be really kind of a fun dynamic to continue to explore as long as they don't play it out where they're just copy pasting other stuff. Anyway, 6.5 megs. I thought it was fun. More so
Cool.
than I thought I would. So
I'm just sad that people are giving you grief about your aversion to that kind of genre.
you know, the shit that I watch isn't for everybody. I get that. But there's some stuff that everyone enjoys that I'm just like, meh, I'm good.
Yeah. And you've always been that way. Like,
Yeah.
you've never enjoyed like the macabre, even macabre. Like that's fine. Like Edgar Allan Poe stuff is fine, but you start getting into the gore stuff and the stuff like that, you just never have liked it. It's never been your cup of tea.
I mean,
And so-
I can do an entire podcast on why, but in short, there's a sense of real familiarity with a lot of that stuff in me throughout my entire life that I just ought not be reminded of some of those times, and so I don't watch it for entertainment. So that's the
absolutely.
biggest reason. Is it's just like, yeah, not for me.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Let's do some Gen Z.
Let's do some Gen Z. We could have rephrased that as well. Let's read from the Gospel by Gen Z.
Yeah.
Where are we at? Chapter 27, friends. House divided. When they brought a man who was nerfed by a demon, Holy Bro yeeted the spirit out of the man, and the bro was unmuted.
Nerfed by a demon.
The chat wondered if Jesus was the main character, but some Karens said nay, for he yeeteth ops by the power of
Yeeteth?
ops.
Wow.
Yeeteth. Yeeteth ops. Sacred Blood said, bruh, I literally can't even with this. If it's by the ops that I yeet out ops, then how does your own fam yeet out ops? Therefore they shall judge whether y'all be tripping or nah. For if the this is going to be tough. For if the op of ops are ops to ops, then they will pop the op of ops. And when they stop, I'll be up. No truer words spoken. When one like a bully McGuire pulls up and puts some dirt in your eye, he will miss the part where that's his problem. But if one like Anatoly comes in clutch, he will lift you back up, carry you out and clean house. Therefore, when the Divine G slides into your DMs and you see that he's typing and trying to cook, see that you do not report his page for hate speech. That's it. That's House Divided.
Wow. I'm gonna have to. That's one of those passages I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
reread and
For
kind of
the
dissect
op
a
of
little
ops
bit.
are ops to ops. Then when will they pop the op of ops, and when will they stop? And I'll be on top. Gangster. I like that though. Holy Bro yeeted the spirit out of the man.
I like Edith. Like what
Oh,
did
the
he say?
yeeteth. Yeah, yeeteth is good. For he yeeteth ops by the power of ops. Yeah. Yeah. 10 talents coming up next, you guys. Gonna be good. It's a short
love
one
it.
too.
I love it.
All right, brother.
All right, my
Next
dude.
week. Next week. I don't know when we're going live. That's the problem. I don't know when we're going to start calling in states. I know when I get off work, I know it's also a work night. So I'm going to do my best, but I feel like we're probably going to be on the interwebs around 5-ish Pacific-ish.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna make some wings early and
Yeah.
like prep some food early, and then right around between 5 and 6, I would say that
Mhm.
like it'll make sense. Before that, you're just going to listen to us like jabber for nothing. But I mean, the point is for us to be pointing at states going, ooh, look at that one. Look at
Yeah,
that
and
one.
that's the other thing too, is like I'm not certain whose cast we're gonna try and pull into this, and when and if we can mute that, if we're gonna have some guests ourselves. It's just gonna be a fun time. We're gonna try
I
and
think
make it fun.
my wife is actually going to be at the elections office,
Okay.
like helping down there. So
Cool.
she will not be joining us. But and I don't know if I have anybody who else would be available because there's a bunch of election watch parties around here,
Right.
so everybody all goes to do that. But I don't know. We'll I'll keep you appraised and then time wise too. So but yeah,
We'll pull
tell you
in a
that. I'm
feed or
looking forward
two.
to-
We'll get some reactions. It'll be all
Yeah.
happening live right here. So can't wait to
It'll be
see you
great.
guys. Awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Well, with that, I think we'll call it, eh?
Sounds good to me, dude.
Awesome.
All right, man. Thanks
Night.
everybody.
Thank you.